LPT, keep your mouth shut and don't volunteer information. Best advice ever. Make a simple, concise statement and then stop talking. Rip Sir Galahad of Camelot link. B/poem 7 wooks lect t equals 81. Haha. That was great. I've never actually seen that film before. Perhaps I'll watch it. There is no doubt. If anyone likes comedy they should watch it at least once. It is a true classic that so many fall in love with. In the 8th grade alone, I probably saw it 100 times. If you don't know them, the Monty Python comedy troupe had a sketch comedy series called Flying Circus that was massively influential. Hi, should I watch the series Flying Circus or the film Holy Grail first? Like my dad always says, the more you say, the more you're responsible for. Like my dad always says, the more you say, the more you're responsible for. Touche. His dad talked so much that his son is now embarrassing him on Reddit. I was going to an interview an hour from my house for a hospital and didn't realize that the bridge a mile and change from the hospital was down to 1 lane. Called the nurse manager 15 minutes before my interview and told her that I was going to be late and that was it. And when I walked in she told me she appreciated that I'd communicated with her and I still got the job. Also, don't make yourself late twice in a row. If you're 15 minutes away, don't say you'll be there in 10 minutes to make them feel better. Say you'll be there in 20 minutes to give you some breathing room to find parking or run to the bathroom. I always fuck myself with this one and I don't know why I constantly do it. Probably for the same reason I do. Because you're a people pleaser, and by telling them initially it'll be less time than it actually will be, you're satisfying them as well as relieving the burden on yourself temporarily. Fuck, why did I just feel this in my soul? Never say more than you have to. Don't lie, but don't offer up extra details. This is my weakness. I feel I need to explain everything from the beginning of time. And the more you do it, the more people think you're full of shit. I honestly hate people for this. Same here. I feel it's respectful if I offer a genuine explanation rather than a shrug. Sorry, I'll work on it. However, I've been told that's not professional. Further, if you must offer a reason, offer one. If you're late because of traffic, a sick cat, and a miscommunication, pick one. You know what 3 sound like: excuses. Even if they are all true. My boss will get annoyed at people making excuses for being late. But once I texted him, I fucked up and overslept. I will be in a sap, and he just thanked me for my honesty and didn't care. As long as you aren't consistently late, being honest works, unless your boss is a dick. True. But in most circumstances I'm running late. I will be in the office in / 20 minutes works just as well. The problem with giving unprompted excuses is the onus is now on your boss to make it clear that your excuse does not absolve you of responsibility. And that's obnoxious to have to do. In your case, acknowledging your responsibility with "I fucked up" has a similar effect. But it's usually in your best interest to avoid saying overly negative things about yourself. In your case, it sounds like it might have helped. Definitely a judgment call depending on how well you know your boss. See, this is what I don't get. People treat explanations and context as excuses when they are clearly not used to avoid responsibility. Telling you what caused an accident obviously isn't the same as claiming it wasn't my fault. But it's like they are totally blind to the difference. And context is always important in any situation. And giving someone the whole picture is a gesture of trust and respect. I only withhold information when I'm trying to get away with it. But it's like people just want someone to point a finger at and don't even care about fixing the problem, which requires understanding the underlying causes. I'm so happy I'm not the only one that feels this way. All my life this has bugged me. There is a difference between an excuse and a reason. Saying "I forgot to set an alarm" isn't excusing your behavior. It's just literally the reason you were late. Why say a lot word when few word do trick? Few word best. Gold. Hash. / view 200D. Do you know the time? Yes. It's 3:30 PM. Stop doing that. What, answering more than was asked? Huh. Do you know what time it is? Yes, well. Done. Reminds me of that Family Guy episode with the psychic. Adam West comes in, "Can I ask you one question?" The psychic replies, "Yes West, thank you very much. My brother always says you just did to this question. Has blown off so many hucksters and mall kiosk people beautifully this way, because then he just keeps walking. I've trained myself to do the same thing. It's now involuntary and becomes really annoying when watching movies/TV. I used to walk into my college advisor's office and timidly say, "I don't mean to bother you," but and he'd say, "Then why are you?" Ruined my day every time, bucko. My advisor would have answered, "Hey, that's what I'm here for. What can I do for you?" There's 2 rules to success. Rule #1, never tell anyone everything you know. I'm gonna use this the next time I'm being interrogated by Batman and he asks me to tell him everything I know. Batman drops you off building feet first. "You're not very good at this. That fall isn't nearly enough to kill me." Guy who doesn't care about broken ankles. He is rich. He has good insurance. I was getting motorcycle insurance. They asked me if I wanted to go ahead and list any traffic violations it had in the past 5 years while we waited for the system to update. Of course I said sure. I listed a speeding ticket and an accident it had a few years prior. They quoted me $256 and a minute later my record came through, and what I had reported as an accident was actually in my record as a moving violation, not an accident. So I end up with 3 traffic violations because of my self-reported accident and another $100 added to my bill. Giving insurance information about tickets and accidents is literally you asking for higher rates. It can never help you, only hurt you. The same goes for talking to the police. Same goes for joining the military, lol. Advice I live by. People think him smart because I don't talk much. Boy do I have them fooled. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Gandalf. Or something. Ganondorf actually. Abraham Lincoln. Michael Scott. I'm a pretty much compulsive over-explainer. I think it's an ad thing. The woman who manages most of my projects at work is always telling me not to give too much info when I email someone asking for clarification. Like sometimes we'll be looking through some data and be pretty sure we know the problem/reason behind what we're seeing. But when I email them, she says to not mention that and leave it very open-ended. Because if you ask them, "Is it because of this?" they'll probably just say, "Yeah, I think that's it," without really looking into it, and then later you'll realize they were wrong. But if you say, "Why is this?" it puts a little pressure and responsibility on them to actually check and be sure. Unfortunately, I do this as well, and for me, I think it's kind of because I don't want them to think I'm lying or holding back extra needed information purposely. Like I want to make sure I tell the other person everything that I see and know about a certain situation, so they don't have any additional questions later. But ultimately, it's better to say less than to say more in many situations from what I've experienced. I can't seem to break the habit though. OMG, I do this too with Reddit comments and IRL. I just want to explain every aspect about the thing and properly explain myself on what's wrong. Probably for fear of being misconstrued or something, lol. Same. So much. For work I like lots of information right off the bat. And I often provide what I'm currently trying to solve as well as the general goal. To avoid the Zai problem. But they keep looking at me funny. Bonus pro tip when interviewing. Don't ever forget that the interviewer probably wants you to succeed. It's in the company's best interest to stop the hiring process as soon as possible. So if you miss an interview like it's very likely rescheduling is a very good move and likely to happen. Absolutely. Every time I walk into an interview, I hope to God that this is going to be the person I hire. It's so important to hire the right person, but I always want it to be over as soon as possible because of how time consuming it is, and because it means we're a person down and everyone else is picking up the slack. It's also not something I particularly enjoy doing. Also, I have rescheduled interviews for people that missed them because sometimes shit does legitimately happen. But it's not a good way to start things off, and I also don't think I've ever hired someone that did miss the originally scheduled interview. Did you not hire them mainly because they missed the interview, Or were there other factors that contributed, and they just happened to also miss the originally scheduled interview? I've never not hired someone because of lateness issues, especially if it was very plausible. Like getting the first call scheduled can be tricky, especially if it's video. I've run into technical difficulties and been late when I've been on the hiring side, so I understand. Course I send a courtesy running late. Sorry message. The last person I remember who was late. I walked in completely open-minded and willing to pretend it didn't happen. She tanked the interview because she barely let us get a word in edgewise. Shame because she was knowledgeable and qualified. But between her lack of perception of social cues, we tried to interject several times. Her role would be employee facing too, plus her lateness. I formed the opinion that she was bad at time management and the type of person who would take an hour to explain something that a reasonable person could do in 5 minutes. The type of person who would take an hour to explain something that a reasonable person could do in 5 minutes if you were in the YouTube video business. That would be a very important quality. Also, first level support. You need to teach the customers to not even bother calling. Also, same information applies in an interview. People hate silence, and it's a common tactic for interviewers to take their time to respond to you so that you keep talking. People can't stand uncomfortable silence, so they will fill the void with chatter, and unplanned chatter usually leads to saying more than you meant to. This is why you always accept the offer of a glass of water. Answer the question. Allow some silence and fill the void by slowly taking a sip of water. If there's still silence by that point, just say something to the effect of, "Would you like me to expand further on anything?" Did this during a police job interview. They took my water away midway. Were you also handcuffed to the table? My father gave me the greatest advice ever when I was enlisting in the military. Don't be first. Don't be last. And don't volunteer. It served me well for decades. I was given this same advice, but when they were handing out tasks in basic, all the good ones were going right away. I decided to get in on the action. They asked for another volunteer, and I shot my hand up. Great. You're latrine queen. Fuck. Nice, we had king shitter. That would have been more appropriate, since we were a male flight. Air Force. Didn't volunteer. Became shoeliner. Got to show up late for breakfast and eat at an only slightly faster than normal pace. Normal civilian pace. Slower than the rest of the flight. Advice holds true. This is also extremely sound legal advice. Keep answers brief. Do not volunteer information. It is okay to say "I don't know." It is okay to say "I don't remember." Please tell us in your own words what happened. I was rear-ended at this location by this person. The end. Make them ask you the questions. Don't tell a long complicated story about how carefully you were driving, or about the traffic, or how rude the person that hit you was. Show us on the doll where he touched you. Back when I was 17, I was working at a golf course that was going under. Some old dude walked up to me and asked how business was. Weekends were always still busy, but really no one came on weekdays until twilight hours, which was fine. I just played my GBA at my stand waiting for people to show up. I said, "Slow, you're one of the first people to show up today." Turns out he was the owner of the course. I no longer worked weekdays after that. I always say steady, you came at a good time. They don't have to know that any time would have been a good time. The usual answer everyone gives where I work is off and on, but steady is a way better answer. Your teacher, do you know why I called you up here? Your GF, do you have something you need to tell me? Your boss, you know. Honesty is the best policy. Your wife, is there anything you'd like to say to me? Where was this LPT 35 years ago? Do you know why I pulled you over? Was it because of the kidnapping? I laugh, cop laughs, trunk laughs. Guy in trunk is scared by the trunk laughing. There's an Irish saying that I go by, say nothing till you hear more. Apostrophe. You never really need an excuse for anything. If you're always late or unprepared, no excuse is going to mean anything. If you're always on time and prepared, you don't need an excuse because it's obvious there's a damn good reason. I thought I had a 930 interview. It was 9. They asked about it. I told them I thought it was 930. Killed interview. Got job. Realized the moment they said 9. I fucked up. Told the truth. No extras. I read that, like you had 930 interviews. Better to remain silent and be thoughtful than to speak and remove all doubt. Proverbs 17:28. Sort of. Life is like chess. Shut the fuck up and wait your turn. I once showed up a few minutes late to an interview due to sleeping in. I made sure to wear nice clothes hoping it would make up for it. I would have been better off showing up on time in basketball shorts and a shirt. My friend that set me up with the interview said the manager's biggest issue with people was showing up late, and if I couldn't be on time for the interview there was no way she would hire me. This was for a crappy part gig in college, so no big deal, but it still sucked. Something similar happened to me. They originally had the interview scheduled as a phone call, but failed to update it. I woke up, didn't shower, shave, or get dressed, and dialed in. No one was there. They called asking where I was, and I said I was waiting on the line but no one else was on. They said it should have been updated, and I was supposed to come in. They asked how fast I could get over to do an in-person interview, and I said 30 minutes. I showed up, but didn't shave, and the older owner was like, "This is how you show up to an interview. With jeans and not shaven." My suit was being dry cleaned. They asked how fast I could get there, not how long it would take. I'm a programmer, so it's pretty irrelevant anyways, but I was like, yeah. I didn't have time, because you didn't update the meeting, and it is what it is. Got hires but knew I'd continue to look for jobs anyways, since that's not a place I'd ever work in my life, after being called out like that for their mistake, and trying to accommodate them. I had an webcam interview once where something like this happened. I get ready and then see that there was a rescheduling of the interview. I call the hiring manager and he instantly assumes I screwed something up and asked if I wanted to still have the interview. I was like, of course, and he says to give him a second to see what I did wrong. He calls back to tell me the supervisor that was going to be on the call did it because he had a dentist appointment. I got no apology for accusing me of trying to get out of an interview or screwing something up. I didn't get the job, thank God. You dodged a bullet there. That's one of the tenets of the 1980 book You Can Negotiate Anything. One of the earliest biz books from the Reagan era. It focuses on win/win negotiation strategies. I believe it's up there with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People and Machiavelli's The Prince. All three, though dated and problematic in their own ways, have been very useful to me in negotiating the world. Tenets. Can you tell me the time? Yes. Yes, I can. What's the time? Time is the indefinite continued progress of existence and events that occur in an apparently irreversible succession from the past, through the present, into the future. But that's not important right now. Movie Airplane. Sort of. So true. I find that you can say 100 awesome gems in a row, but the moment you give them one idiotic clanger it's game over. People are so ruthless socially. This is Manipulation 101. Silence can offer millions of answers, but mostly the ones the other party is looking for. Being vague while still engaging is like giving a blank canvas to whoever you are conversing with. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.